Hey, welcome back to the show, everybody. We have a special guest with us tonight, Ronald L. Murphy Jr. He is an accomplished author. He's got many books, and we'll show you those on Amazon. Uh, Investigator, researcher, paranormal enthusiast, cryptid, zoology. He he has done a lot in the field. He's well known. Friend of the show that's been on here, Brandon Bowden. You've seen him on the show too. You just like they're really good friends and know each other. He recommended Ron to us, and jumped to the chance to have him on the show. So we're just going to be talking all things paranormal, all things cryptid. We're just going to kind of just deep dive into the subject at hand, and so we're just going to get right to it. Ron L. Murphy Jr. is next.
Welcome to the Three Beards podcast. My name's Craig, along with Austin and Chris.
Passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century.
Let me out.
I'm afraid that is why you trust me.
Then live to send the innocent to their death? Is this justice and honor in Massachusetts colony?
All right, gentlemen, we are back. Burke decided to show up for this one. So there he is.
He came out of hiatus.
He apparently he was using the excuse I was underneath a vehicle and I couldn't make it to the show.
And then I got sick, so it's fucking karma. I've been sick for a week and a half now. I hate it.
You can't ditch the beard. That's what happens.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
too.
that's time. Let's bring on the guest. Ron Murphy, how are you, sir?
Oh, I am so glad to be here. And I got to let you know that whenever I found out that I was going to be on this show, I had to hurry up and start growing the beard because I just assumed that was one of the requisites for being on here.
Yes, well, it is. I mean, especially if Austin hadn't made it, it's like we would have needed a third one. So yeah, it worked out good.
Yeah.
So like I said, I'm going to show this up here on the screen here for everybody. I talked about your books. I mean, like I said, I'm trying to remember if I counted one. I wanted to say there was at least 16 or more.
Yeah, I've written about probably right around 16 books on the paranormal. Now, I also indulge in other things as well, too. For most of my adult life, I've been involved either in education or counseling. So the one there, Harmonics of Humanity, that is a self-help book. And then I've written a lot of books on poetry as well, too. So, I have a degree in literature and my master's degree is in history. So not everything can be about the paranormal. But what I like to do is like to look at the paranormal from a very multidisciplinary stance. I like to include psychology. I like to include sociology and try to really get a clearer picture of what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, I really like that approach too, because that's one of the things I think, especially now, it's a great starting off point too. The take right now, it is ugly in the UFO community, the cryptid communities, because I think, and tell me if you think I'm off base or not on this one, but I feel like everybody has set up people as a messiah, as like this is the one all, the know all. This is the person where, without question, and then things seem to fall apart from there. It's like everybody just and that's why I like people like yourself, those approaches, because I think there needs to be a lot more aspect on finding out what isn't something, than just automatically saying, "Oh my God, I've got it."
Sure.
You've got to figure out what it is.
Yeah, the self-appointed experts in the field, and that's the thing that, every field has this problem. But when we're talking about a genre field like the paranormal, which is quasi-scientific in and of itself, you have a lot of people out there role playing as if there's something that they're not, because nobody's really checking on any kind of credentials or anything. So I mean, and the thing about being a cryptozoologist, that's self-named anyways. Anybody can be a cryptozoologist. But you really have to be careful about people, because in this field, everybody is jockeying for position. 10 years ago, it wasn't so much like this, but now everybody wants a television deal. Everybody wants a book deal, and they want to be seen. They don't necessarily want to get to the bottom of these mysteries out there. They want to be nothing more than a talking head. And if you look at the rampant amount of shows that are on cable television nowadays, there's some shows on there, I don't want to name any names, but there's some shows on there that are just analyzing videos. And some of these videos have been debunked a decade ago. Yet they're throwing them on there again, they're recycling them again. And there's never a negative point to all the videos. Like whatever you show up there, it's immediately paranormal in nature, So I do have a problem with that, because in this field, you have to also be skeptical, because if everything that you take is going to be, every bump in the night is going to be a monster, then you're letting yourself down, and you're letting your research down as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in that possessed pet show, I don't know if have you seen that one?
Yep.
My take on it is when I first saw it, I'm like, all right, how is Fido supposed to tell you that he's got the devil in you? Is he supposed to, are you supposed to I command the devil to come out? The dog's like, just starts flopping, Exorcist starts, his kibbles start flowing out. I mean, how's it? I'm like, how is your dog supposed to let you know it's possessed and it's just not being a bad boy because it just decided it wanted to pee on the carpet? I don't think that's the devil.
Sure.
I think that's just the dog.
No.
But before you go too deep,
go ahead, Carl. I'm sorry, Chris.
Before you go too deep on that side, Craig, my question to the guest is, why do you feel that no one wants a truth platform on where you don't see the cryptid in the bushes, you see a little sketch or something, and no one wants to debunk that, and then the group admin kicks you out?
That's right.
We've got to start posting accurate pictures or better images of these cryptids, because soon people will be like, these cryptids don't exist. Nobody's got good pictures. I mean, but people in their heart always believe that we're not the only creatures on the earth, and we haven't been the only creatures on the earth. But people just post this paper. Do you see this cryptid? And you're like, no, it's a piece of paper. So why won't people debunk this? And the groups that start up a new page and try to, they don't last long. So
well, I think what Craig said at the beginning is absolutely the case. That they're looking for a messiah. They're looking for the person that is the boots on the ground guy that goes out there and does things that they don't. So they're living vicariously through the person that's going out in the woods and taking their proverbial life in their hand. Okay. Then they come back with a picture that there has to be red circles drawn around it to get something, right? But they want to believe. People they want to believe this stuff. So I'm looking at all the comments here on the side of the computer right here. All these people out here are genuine people that have an interest in the paranormal. They want to understand what's out there. Okay, that's one thing. But whenever you go and you say, I am an expert on this, and every time I go out, I capture evidence because I know what I'm doing. Those are the kind of people you have to be look, we all have done this, right? We've all gone out. Sometimes we luck in and get an EVP, or we get a cast printed or taken from a print. Sometimes we go out there and we get something. But for the majority of the times that we go out in the woods, we come back with maybe ticks and a couple mosquito bites. I mean, that's what we come back with,
Yeah. It's, and I really think it's just, especially in the era of everything, TikTok, Snapchat. I mean, everything is just the quick little bites. We got to have the quick little clips. We got to have these things we got to get the clicks. We got to have the hearts going, and I think some of that's been lost on just the importance of, I mean, I hate to say just, credibility is at stake. It's one of those, when you see a blurry photo and everybody says, "Oh my God, that you have captured the most impressive thing I've ever seen," I go, when you have somebody like, in, full disclosure, my wife is a huge, probably, the quasi skeptic. I mean, she just is like, Bigfoot would have to come up and say, "What's up? High five," for her to believe that Bigfoot exists. And so when she sees these pictures and somebody's saying, "You can see clearly that I've got a whole family of Bigfoot right back here waving hello to me," she looks at them and says, "These people are crazy. They're absolutely crazy." And then, but the problem with that is Ron Murphy, Brian M. Bowden all get lumped in with that now because you guys are part of that community.
That's very true. Actually, it was Benjamin Radford, for the Center for the Skeptical Inquiry. He said the biggest problem in the Bigfoot field is not the people that are denouncing the hunters. It is the investigators themselves that is doing the most dishonor to the field. And that is true because everybody is here backstabbing everybody else. I've had things stolen off of me. I've had ideas stolen off of me because in the academic world, it's publish or perish. You have to come up with something new all the time. And it's getting like this in this field as well, too. But there's also a lot of the audience getting the advantage taken out of it. They're getting taken advantage of. So whenever I write a book, it takes a while to write a book. Okay. Even though I'm fairly prolific whenever it comes to books, I start, usually writing about 2 or 3 at a time, but it takes a long time to write a book and to do it properly. Now, there are people out there, the experts in the field that I go to conferences with, and they'll have a book that's 30 pages long and selling it for $20, the same way that I sell my books that are, 200 pages long, because they're going there by name recognition only. And their research is basically what they came up with. So in any of my books, if you go to the back, there's always going to be resources, because in order to get to the bottom of this, we have to stand on the shoulders of giants, right? We have to look what other people have done as well, too, and take what they have done and see if we can somehow incorporate that into our research as well. But so many people go out there and just say, "Hey, I'm the end all and be all of this stuff," and they don't even care what anybody else comments.
Yeah, I've always cautioned people too. It's like, I'm not slamming everybody that just comes to you, because that's the thing. We've got to have a thing where if you think you've seen something, submit it, but you've also got to be willing to have people say there's nothing there, and not take it as a personal attack. Like, I'm just, that everybody just called you an idiot. No, it's like, you're out in the field. I can't say that, Ron, when you're out there, that your experience is invalid because I wasn't there. You could have actually felt, everybody that's been in the woods, you feel that hair on the back of your neck stand up, that there's something there, whether it's a cougar, something is there. It's just natural. It's that natural instinct to, sense out a predator. And so I can't tell you that you didn't experience something. I can just tell you that what you have in the photograph is not there.
Right.
And that's,
the further I get down this rabbit hole, the more I see how subjective the paranormal field is. And that's starting to lead me to, on these other tangents as well, too, to think that things that we're looking for, like Bigfoot and like Dogman and all these other kind of cryptids out there, and even ghosts and UFOs, it seems there's a gray area out there, my friends. And in that gray area is a combination of all of these things that make up our nightmares, right? So I'm thinking that what we need to do is we need to look at a very broader scope of all this kind of stuff. And really, a lot of researchers out there, if they have a Bigfoot encounter or an account, and there's evidence within that account that does not match up to what they believe should happen, they'll throw it out. There's a camps out there that believe that Bigfoot is a flesh and blood creature. The other one thinks it's extraterrestrial. There's another one that thinks it's interdimensional. And, I've talked to people and they say, well, we've also seen orbs in relation to a Bigfoot encounter. But the person that was taking the account, they would throw that part out because it doesn't necessarily fit into their belief systems, right? So when we go out there, we have to keep an open mind and take into consideration everything that everybody sees. I was interviewing a ghost investigative team that was seeing orbs inside a farmhouse. It was an old abandoned farmhouse. And somebody had to go outside and change the batteries. And he found, this is very peculiar, he found that there was also an orb floating up in the sky. And whenever it went off, the orb in the house went off, and vice versa. So at that point, you could have a UFO encounter, you could have a ghostly encounter as well too. So how does that all mesh up then at that point? And sometimes cryptids are seen, with UFOs in the area. It seems like there's so much bleed over in all these different circumstances that there's more out there than just meets the eye. I mean, there's something else going on here that kind of connects all the dots.
Yeah. And, before we get too far, I don't know if you saw that from that question from Kat Ward. So do you have any inside baseball on the latest Ron book that's coming out?
How long does it usually take to write your books and stuff?
You know what? So the quickest I've ever written a book was on lake monsters, and I got invited by Brad Blair to go up to the Michigan Paracon up in Sault Ste. Marie, and I was working on some notes about the Great Lakes monsters, but I got a chance at that point to investigate all of the Great Lakes. So I went through every single one of them, noted, the kind of so-called mysteries that were going on there. And I compiled all the information, and I was so enthusiastic to get it done. I was able to actually write the whole entire book in 4 days. Now that doesn't include the research. Wow. The research took about a year, but after I got all the research done, I was able to do it in about 4 days. And Lauren Coleman actually said that was the best book written on lake monsters that year. So sometimes that kind of stuff can happen, but it usually takes me about 6 months. About 6 months of research and sitting down and writing. So what I'm working on right now is a book on earthlights, which is a great mystery that a lot of people have, this kind of luminescence that is seen. And what has led me to start writing a book about this is in March, I was asked to do a series on Bigfoot from Small Town Monsters, Seth Breedlove's group. And we were actually filming up on the Chestnut Ridge, which is very close to my home. And that investigation was nothing more than earthlights everywhere. I've never seen anything like that. And, ghost lights, UFO phenomenon, cryptid, was all together at that one perfect storm of the paranormal. So I've been writing that since March.
Yeah, there's a follow-up one. It's like, when are you coming to Canada to conduct some research?
Whenever she invites me. She was supposed to try to see about getting a conference done. And that's the other thing, is the thing I like about Kat is she comes from this from a very academic point of view as well too.
Nice.
So many times we do conferences and they're like on the periphery of society, some rundown conference hall someplace, or in the basement of a bar. Nobody ever does these conferences in a university. And I think that we should have an open dialogue from a perspective that these things are out there. They're part of our culture, okay? And we should really talk about this as a group. Instead of bashing each other, we should talk openly about why we still have these archetypes existing in the 21st century.
So if you had to pick a cryptid, what is your most interesting cryptid, and what cryptid do you think there is more of in society?
Oh, right. So that's a great question. So for cryptid, that would mean that this animal would actually exist in the real world, right? So that's the other thing. It's such a slippery slope. I would think that if cryptids did indeed exist, if there's a flesh and blood cryptid out there, I think we would have to go with Bigfoot. I think that we would have to go with him because so many people see it, right? It's pervasive. But another thing, guys, and I know that we're a bunch of guys here with beards, but there's another theory that I have, and this, sometimes I myself even blush talking about it because it's such a loaded term, but I'm going to come out and say it. I also believe that a lot of these paranormal activities can go back to what people call fairies. Now, let's not say fairies. Let's call elementals, okay? So I have a firm belief that within our world there are intelligences. Let's put it that way, okay? Now, if we would go back to the Renaissance with alchemy, that was so categorized about, an element of flame, an element of water, of wind and earth and everything. But there were great thinkers back at that time that said, in order for this whole crazy world to come together and for it to be so, cooperative, there almost has to be a an unspoken conversation between us and the world around us. Okay, so that's great. That's kind of like the baseline that I go with. But also, whenever you look at the capabilities of fairies, they've been known to shapeshift. There have been people said that they've stayed at a home that was haunted by ghosts and occupied by fairies as well, and the fairies were worse than the ghosts. And also remember, from the Middle Ages up, people have been reporting being abducted by fairies, which, whenever you read the accounts, sound remarkably like alien abduction. So it may indeed be that what we're looking for is an intelligence within the natural world that can somehow project into us what it wants us to see, or at least project into us something that we create within our own mind. And that is the reason why we don't have any pictures of Bigfoot, or we have blurry images, or we have no bones and things like that. And that's simply because what is being projected is something that comes from in our own psyche.
I could go behind that. I can't say. Because that's always been the biggest question too. Is it's like we have all these sightings, but yet we're not finding any like the actual physical remains, which is the craziest part. It's one of those. If we know they're out there, it's like, why are we not finding just these larger pieces of evidence? Because eventually something's going to have to happen. One's going to have to have passed away at some point. So where is this thing? You're coming across it. I'm not sure where you're on. I'm on the camp of it was completely staged, but the skull found up there in Canada.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah. I actually watched that whenever it first came out on YouTube, and it's a shame because I did respect Cody Peterson, because my kids watch him on YouTube. He seemed very innocuous at best, and I just assumed that he was not ever going to try to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. But absolutely, I do believe that was something that was faked, and it's a shame because that also muddies the waters even more whenever you come to cryptozoological research, because people will just say, "See, there it goes again." But Laura on here made a good point. The idea of tricksters, that is something found in all cultures around the world. So, the Native Americans, the First Nations, we know more about tricksters because they have names. We appropriate from those people because, they're part of our country, and we like to take over things. But, like this idea of the shapeshifter, the skinwalker, that kind of stuff, that's all been appropriated from a Native American culture. But it's the same in Africa. It's the same in Europe, and even Australia. When we think about the Australian Aboriginal peoples, the idea of their dream time, they also have trickster figures built within their cosmology as well, too. And basically what these trickster figures do is they are able to assume other shapes or to mislead people. And again, that goes the whole way back to the idea of the fairy as well, too, because they're known to do just that.
Yeah. And it's what you said it, that's one of the things that's always lended credibility to me on some of these creatures, is the fact that you got the First Nations tribes, that the oral tradition has been handed down of the large hairy creatures, the wild man, the hairy wild man, they're just these ones where they go through these things like with a skinwalker, they go through, all these legends, and you're like, so there's obviously something to this.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, because I don't see some it would seem pretty amazing that some chief just making up a scary story to get the kids back in bed, came up with this legend, and that would persist throughout all the centuries.
Right. So this is a good point, and we should really talk about this because whenever you do, if you're going to be a serious paranormal investigator, you have to look at the history, because events do not exist in a vacuum. So if you have a Bigfoot in the 21st century, you should have had a Bigfoot 2,000 years ago, right? Because they don't pop out of nowhere, right? So there has to be some sort of tradition about what's going on. So the archaeological record is very important to look at. But most of the archaeological record has been written by puritanical Victorian white guys who think that they knew everything about other cultures, and that's very dangerous. So if you look, whenever anything is found in the ancient world, we find a figure like a female figure, immediately it's a fertility figure, right? Because that's what all women were capable of doing in the ancient world, according to their perspective. The other thing is too is the Native Americans and all other peoples were somehow inferior to Europeans, right? That Eurocentric type of idea. So whenever we talked about it, I don't know if you gentlemen ever had a show on giants, but I would love to be a part of that as well too.
We've got a couple.
Yeah, see, this is great. So, and I've done a lot of research on this as well too, because one of my favorite things to study is the Woodlands Indians and the mound building cultures. So we know for a fact that in the late early 1900s, a lot of mounds were being found. Okay, a lot of them. Some of them were very near for where I live right now, and what always happened was somebody would open it up and there would be a giant skeleton in there, and they had no idea what they're talking about. It's some farmer, you know what I mean? And these are coming from small town newspapers. It's not like, you know, the Chicago Tribune, where, you know, this is coming from a town of a few hundred people where we know immediately who this guy is. You know, that's Farmer Jake that lives on the outside of town. So Jake doesn't know what to do with it. So a couple days later, the newspaper says they're sending to the local university to get a professor over. And it's always some sort of, you know, hayseed university, someplace, you know, in a potato field someplace. And the guy comes and he doesn't know what he's looking at either. So guess what he does? He contacts somebody in the Smithsonian, right? Yep. And they come out and it's never seen again. It's never seen again. And so when we talk about the idea of like hiding things and casting dispersion on things, one of the reasons why they could do that, and a lot of people have actually questioned why they were doing that. Well, there's a couple reasons. Number one is that when this stuff was coming out, Darwin's Origin of the Species just came out, right? And a lot of puritanical people were thinking that this is a bunch of hogwash, and these things somehow showed that there was life before us. So to calm the crowds and for the status quo, let's get rid of these things. The more hateful thing is to show that there was an advanced civilization in America that we somehow subjugated or we destroyed or killed off, and that the Native Americans that we were casting off of their lands were part of this ancient tradition of people that were highly technical, highly intelligent people, that we don't want to admit to that, because that somehow changes the savage notion of who we just conquered.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's been one of the things a lot. I mean, how much has been lost? Because you talk about the mounds, to people building fence posts.
Oh,
I mean, you think about back in the colonial time, just how much, you know, things. It's like we've, you know, Dennis, you know, up there in New Hampshire with America's Stonehenge, you know, you've got this. It's like, you think how many of these sites were destroyed,
right, to
make, you know, to make a fireplace in the cabin.
Perfect point. So Grave Creek Mound in Moundsville, West Virginia, it was such a remarkable mound that I believe it was Meriwether Lewis, before he started the Lewis and Clark expedition, actually visited the site because it was a very, you know, prominent site. So what the people that owned the land thought would be a good idea is basically take a pitchfork and a shovel to it, right? No archaeological training whatsoever. They just dug into the thing, and they came upon several burial chambers. Okay, so what do we believe in this story? Because what people were talking about is they were discovering these burial pits, and one of them had a 12-foot tall female skeleton in there with a plaque that looked like some sort of strange writing that some people said was Phoenician, some people said it was Israelite. Whatever the case may be, there was a plaque in there. All this stuff disappeared. So are we to believe that they actually did find this? Or are we talking about that this is some sort of, yellow journalism back in the time, you know, some sort of sensationalist journalism at the time? So I think, like you said, I think we lost more information than we've gained simply because we don't know how to approach it, or we're afraid about the way people are going to take it. You know, we want to appeal to the masses.
And then Laura just mentioned like the Nephilim, and I think that's been kind of like the common thing. You know, like you were talking about the giants. We were talking about there's many across the globe. There's a story of the red-haired giant that had, you know, that was basically cannibalistic.
Yep.
And there's many of those stories. I mean, that's one of those. And kind of on the thing, do you believe that there's still maybe pockets of them? Because I mean, we've all heard the story of the Kandahar giant,
Right,
in Afghanistan. Do you think there's still some of those holdovers, or do you think pretty much maybe like that was one of the last?
Yeah. A lot of my research does tend to the side of remnant populations, because I really think that there's a possibility, even in this world that has seemingly been charted and mapped, there are still wild places out there. And I think that if you have, now things have to go into this. So first of all, you have to be intelligent. And the second thing that you have is you have to be self-aware. If you can look at the world and think that, my place in this world is going to be jeopardized if I make contact with anybody else, then you can stay hidden, especially if you are of the, of the persuasion that you can stay in the woods. And that's where you were brought up, and you were, so when we talk about the wild man, can the wild man still stay wild in a civilized world? And the answer most certainly is yes, because there are a lot of wild places still out there.
Oh yeah.
But I do think that, correct me if I'm wrong, I do think that the way society is, if you came across an actual dog man, you actually shook his hand, or you actually shook Bigfoot's hand, and you had a picture, it was confirmed that it wasn't a costume because you were able to pluck some hair off of it, and you'd be whisked off to a psychiatric institution immediately. Oh no, that wasn't a Bigfoot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. You'd be mumbling to yourself for the rest of your life.
Sure.
I think,
go ahead.
I think that no one really would actually come forward if they actually did get in personal encounter.
Right. I've often thought about this, and that's a great question. I've often thought about what happens if this would happen. And I truly believe that unless you have a carcass to toss down on the table, it's probably better you don't go to anybody with this information. Because if you do not have legitimate proof, they're either going to think, like you said, you're making this up, or in no way am I a conspiracy theorist. But I think that if you would come up with just enough tantalizing information, people would pay you a visit.
You're right. But even with that information, even if you plopped a carcass on the table, I think you would never be seen again.
That's probably the case. Yeah, that's probably the case. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Because there are things out there that are better left undiscovered, right? I mean, I think that's just the way we should look at the world. And there are powers that be out there for whatever reason that wants to keep America in the dark about these things. I think there are far more things out there like Bigfoot and Dogman and UFOs that people know about, but they're refusing to share because they're afraid of what's going to happen. And also, any kind of information is also power, right? And if somebody has information and you don't, that person has more power over you because they have the information. But there are strange reports that come out every now and then about the Army field guides saying about a Bigfoot in California. I'm sure you've seen or heard about that, right? These kind of strange things come out that makes it look like there are people out there that know what is going on. And and again, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but I would think that there's a level of government someplace that knows that within the interior of America, there are strange things out there. And also, that may indeed be what the Lewis and Clark expedition was about as well. Jefferson was very big into paleontology, and he told them to keep an eye open to see if there was any of these mammoths or giant sloths that were going on, because there was a bone site that was uncovered in Virginia right before they left, and they thought because these bones seemed, even though they were fossilized, there's a possibility these creatures were still out there. So I think that would be very intriguing to think that somewhere along their journeys, Lewis and Clark may have come across these creatures as well too, because we have to remember. As Audubon went out there to collect information about birds of America, he claims to have shot and categorized something called a golden eagle, which has never been seen again. The only one that was ever been documented was in this work by Audubon. So it's very possible that there are strange things out there still hiding that people know about, but they don't want the public to know about.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things. It's kind of like dinosaurs. I mean, those really weren't known until almost the late 16th century.
Yeah. Well,
so it's crazy.
Right. Well, I will tell you this. So George Washington died in 1799, and he did not know about dinosaurs. Now, dinosaur bones, like you said, were being excavated, especially in Europe and places, but they had no idea what they were doing with them. Now, there are accounts of like Herodotus, the great Greek travel writer, that would go to these places to see the bones of famous heroes like Odysseus. And he said that one of the bones was about 5 feet high. So he was seeing the bones of prehistoric animals. And of course, the Chinese culture has this belief in dragons and, the dragon's teeth. And those were probably, most definitely dinosaur teeth as well. But wouldn't it be something to say that with all the knights in shining armor and all these tales told from the Dark Ages up and through the Renaissance of these kind of fire-breathing dragons, that is it possible there might have been a remnant population of dinosaurs still existing out there somewhere that people had written about or had come across in the game of telephone, kind of made them into something, into the fire-breathing dragon that the knights have to take down.
Yeah, I mean, it's great you brought that up, because that's one of the things I've always wondered. It's like, just like the First Nation trainings, these are some of these oral traditions that are passed down about these things. I'm like, I'm sorry, but I don't think that there's a lot of these people that had this massive creative, thing where they could come up with, just all the stuff and just come up with these elaborate stories and just keep these things, perpetrated. It seems like there's things, a lot of the stuff that they would have to be, they would have to be seen, just these tales. And it's like, it's really impressive. I mean, so I wonder, what was it? Was it just they saw something like a woolly man, you have these holdovers, and it kind of morphed into this, these kind of creatures. But yeah, I've often wondered if they actually did exist at one point.
Right. And that's a good point that you brought up too about the woolly mammoth, because if any cryptid could be alive out there nowadays, that would be the one that I wish was alive, because ever since I've been a child, I've always been fascinated by the woolly mammoth. But people every now and then do report seeing them in far off places in remote Siberia and such. But the cool thing about the mammoth is we know for a fact from the paleontological record that they existed until after the time of the Great Pyramids, right? There were still pockets of these animals out there. So whenever you put an animal on an island, a mammal on an island, something happens called insular dwarfism, where these animals get very, very small. So the big mammoths that we were envisioning and these islands up in Siberia, they start shrinking down to become about the size of a very large cow at this point. So we know that they're on Wrangel Island. We do know that there was mammoths existing up there to maybe 2,000 years ago, which blows the mind to think there were parts of the Bible being written at that time. This was part of the historical period. And to think that there was these mammoths still alive, still remnant population, still holdovers, still managing to exist on an island in Siberia.
Is it too far-fetched to say that these creatures are interdimensional? Like, they're mostly spotted at sacred places or places where the mountains are really high, where there's foliage and water. Do you think that possibly there's a portal that they go in and out, how they dodge trail cameras? I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of trail cameras in the woods because people scout deer. They manage to avoid the feed piles. They manage to avoid all of these things. Do you think by chance they're interdimensional?
Well, as my theory I stated, half an hour ago, if these things are made of energy, okay, if they are intelligent, then the idea of portals becomes quite feasible, because energy, you just transfer energy right back and forth. And maybe the reason why they're not being picked up on trail cameras is because you can't pick up energy on trail cameras, right? That's the thing. So that is really the rabbit hole I'm down at this point, guys, and I'm still falling pretty quickly. I already passed up Ellis a little bit ago, because of as many times as I've been out in the woods and as many times as I've talk to people that were stone cold sober, intelligent people that were systemically affected by a sighting. They simply cannot explain. I know for a fact, 100%, that it's beyond faith at this point, that I know that there are things out there that we know nothing about. Okay, that's number one. But I also know, from an intelligent point of view too, is that there's no reason why we're not capturing something somewhere. Whether, like you said too, Craig, look, accidents happen out in the woods. A Bigfoot could get cut and die of a cut. They could get rabies. There's a lot of things that would lead an animal to die out in the woods. Or like you said, something is going to trip up sometime and just run out in the middle of the road and get hit by a truck. These things happen. Think about this for a second. There was a mountain lion killed in New Hampshire on the highway, and they tracked it back and found out that it originated in Montana. So these creatures, nothing stops them from crossing boundaries and everything. So if there are all these apex predators out there, if there's a dogman out there, if there's a Bigfoot out there, Mothman, all these things. First of all, there's no way biologically that they're going to be able to overlap in such a small area. The territory would have to be vast. If you're talking about two apex predators, like a Bigfoot and a dogman in the same area, that's not going to happen, my friends. But if you have energy out there that is able to convince you that it is a 12-foot tall, hair-covered, man-like beast or a creature with the head of a dog, then all that energy could exist right in our world along with us, and everybody gets along nicely.
I see Brian's busting your balls there.
The thing that eludes me more than any cryptid is this mystery between men and women. So I'm going to take a time out on that one, guys. Yeah. I don't do very good in the women department. So
I get it. That was one of those. I teased that to you, before the show, and that was one I wanted to get to you, because you brought it up. The Dogman is like I told you before the show. This is one. Growing up, I had never heard of this before. I mean, it was werewolves. You saw that from Hollywood. Everything was the werewolf. From Halloween and stuff. But then I feel like within the last decade is when the Dogman suddenly has this. I would say it was almost like an overnight, just suddenly, just boom, it's appeared. And now this seems to be like the it thing. Like everybody's saying, I'm seeing Dogman. There's a Dogman. I've seen this. Where do you think that this happened? It was like, do you think that this just became like the it thing? Like everybody's looking for this now? Or do you think that this is something like a cryptid that basically is manifested and has just shown up on the scene, and now we're really starting to see these sightings?
Right. So these are all great questions. So I wrote a book on Dogman. So my first thing is to find out, is there a precedent in the historical record concerning a wolfman or something like that? And we can look and see that Anubis, for instance, the idea of this funerary deity in the Egyptian culture had attributes of both man and wolf at the same time, right? And we also know that the word lycanthrope, where we get that from, the word lichen comes from a king of a place called Acadia in Greece. And that area was a wild place, and there's a lot of traditions of werewolves coming from that place, which is very odd. Herodotus also wrote about an Olympian that went there and transformed into a werewolf for 7 years and 1 day until they can convert back to being a human being. So we do know that the idea of transformation from the human state into a wolf-like state is part of our human imagination. Okay, we know that for a fact. But the idea of a creature known as a Dogman prowling about the woods of America, you don't really see that in Native American culture, do you? We really don't see that. We talk about skinwalkers, but they really don't come out and just talk about a Dogman, nothing like to that regard. But so we know that people were seeing something that resembled an upright walking canine in the woods of northern Michigan whenever the deforestation took place. So in the late 1800s, early 1900s, people were reporting things up there. But we also have to remember that those people that were reporting things up there were actually immigrants from Europe that brought their own traditions over with them, right? So, they have the idea of the werewolf. So I think a lot of what's going on is this supplantation of European mythology into a new world setting, and we kind of try to figure out what to do with it at that point. I have spoken at a Dogman conference. I've investigated dogmen. I've been around a lot of people that swear that they've seen and encountered a dogman, and I do truly believe that they did, from their own subjective point of view. But yet, where this creature came from and exactly what it is, I have no idea.
Yeah, Laura had put, I'll put that comment back up there. She had actually brought this up, and that was kind of in a way, it was one I was gonna get to. Do you think that this could be something, like the legendary, the Hellhound? Like this could be something like the manifestation of that, because that's.
So Laura has been on the ball twice already today. She seems to be on top of things. So in my book on Dogman, I do have a chapter just on hellhounds, because I do think that that's what we're dealing with here as well. Whenever we talk about a werewolf or a dogman, one of the traits, the attributes of the reason they're called that is not so much they resemble the person or man, it's because they have intelligence. And this goes back to the Middle Ages, the medieval way of thinking. So the reason why we call these hellhounds, well, they can fit into the category of dogmen, is because they have human-like intelligence. And I do most certainly put those all in together as part of this myth building, because not only the hellhound, but we also have the tradition of the church grim over in Europe as well too. That was kind of like the ghostly caretaker of church of graveyards.
And that's Emily. She brought that thing. And that was one of the other possibilities I was going to bring up to you. It's like, because that's one of the reported things where the chupacabra came from, is that this is a possible government, like the Dr. Moreau Island, this, and that it escaped, and that's how it got out into the wild, and that this could be the same thing. It's like you've taken some wolf, you've taken some dog, breed, and you've done a cross, and you've ended up with something like whether you're trying to go for a werewolf, but you ended up with creating something like the dog man, and it got out. Right.
There's a great movie called Dog Soldiers. Have you gentlemen seen it?
Mm-hmm. I've seen that one.
Yeah. So about a group of commandos up in Scotland, and that's basically the premise of the story, that somehow these are created type of things and they got loose. I'm not going to theorize that that's what's going on, but I would think that if our government had the capabilities of doing such things, they most certainly would do such things.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. I guess it's a good time as any. It's like I've told a few people this, like off camera and stuff like this. But I kind of almost think of it like brainstorming. There's not really a bad idea. It's like I like just throwing stuff out there. I mean, me and Joey Medea, he's used a thing. It's like, I think the danger is when you make a definitive statement, like this is the case. This is the only way, because then you've kind of you've boxed yourself, painted that yourself into the corner. But if you just throw out these ideas, I mean, there's all these possibilities. I mean, like I said, it could be something like an interbreeding thing that was done in a military facility. It could be a hellhound. There's a lot of possibilities of where this has come from.
Right. I will tell you my dogman encounter very quickly, and I'll let you guys think about what was going on. So in my area of Western Pennsylvania, it's a pretty desolate area. And there's a lot of Bigfoot sightings down there, a lot of UFO sightings, hauntings and things. Again, the perfect storm for things that are going paranormal. So I was down there one evening, and because there was a werewolf sighting down there, a dogman sighting. So I thought, see what's going on. So as I was making my way through the woods, my camera started to show these orbs, these streaks of light moving in and out of the path. And this is already in, like, you can see your breath. This was in November, so there shouldn't be any bugs around. But I just took it that this was the last remnants of a few things. But whenever I got out to a clearing, I noticed that the sky around me looked like there was a lot of static electricity, almost like an electrical storm that was coming, but more akin to if you would pull the covers off of your bed and you see those sparks. That's what it looked like to me. Whatever was going on, I needed to get out of there. And it might have been the electricity in there. I have no idea. But as I turn around, my way back, which was the only way to get back to my vehicle, there was only one way in and one way out, and that was the same way. a massive ball of light just ignites, and it almost looks like a Roman candle, and it kind of fizzled out into nothingness. Oh, that's pretty strange. I've never encountered anything like that. Whenever, whenever I got to the spot where that emanation came about, immediately, whenever I came to that spot, I could hear something in the woods off to my right following me. Okay. Now, I have no idea what it was. It kept track with me. And all I know is what my mind was telling me. You know, there was something in me, you know, one of those parts of your body that's almost atrophied, but still there, that flight or fight response. And it was definitely just nothing but flight, because I knew I had to get the hell out of there. But within my mind, I could tell that it was some sort of predator. Something was alerting me what it was. So for the most part, I formulated what this thing was out in my mind. Okay. And it was as real to me as if I did encounter, you know, a dog man. But whatever happened, you know, again, we could talk about that orb lighting up. Was that a portal opening? Okay. I don't know. Was it one of these natural energies, one of these elementals manifesting itself and somehow projecting into me what I wanted to see? Again, I have no idea. I can only know that that was the experience that took me from being somebody that was casually involved in the paranormal to somebody that was now writing books about it. That was the one moment that led me to where I'm at today.
Yeah, and I was just thinking as you're talking that, because that's one of those descriptions that it takes place in Massachusetts, around where all the sightings of the Pukwudgie
absolutely
are. You see a lot of that same like orb activity. You know, the tribes around there. I think it was the Algonquin. I think
we have the Wampanoag up in there, and a lot of
Wampanoag. Yeah, that could be. Yeah, and that was one of those where that they had all that tradition of the orbs. You know, that those would be seen. You know, coming down through the forest and stuff. So that would make sense where, if this is something, you know, like the jinn, you know, you have these ancient energy things, that if something's like that would be something like either a product of, or like something that's just involved when they make an appearance, is that you have this natural interaction, and it causes these, whether it's like a ball lightning, or something like that, where it's just this orb that you see.
And that's a good point about the jinn as well, too. We don't talk about the jinn as much, but, you know, whenever I use the word fairy, that's actually interchangeable with the jinn, because that's what we're talking about, an elemental. But again, the idea that the jinn were created out of smokeless fire, you know, that they were created out of this living flame, these orbs that is continually talked about in cultures around the world. Even in Australia, you know, the Aboriginal people have something there called the Min Min lights, which is a light phenomenon that somehow opens the door to their dream time as well. So the idea that there's intelligent lights within our world is something to be investigated, and that is the reason I'm writing a book about it right now.
Yeah, and I think Laura just put, it's like, don't they kind of create false realities too?
Yeah, shapes. Okay, again, Laura on the ball. You need to get her on the show. So actually, yeah,
I've been on her show.
About the idea of the trickster or throughout cultures, the jinn absolutely plays that role for the Arabic culture without a doubt, and they're also seen as demons as well. We can find a list of prayers to exorcise a jinn out of somebody's house and out of somebody's body as well. And jinn can also fall back to the idea of vampires, because they're seen to be able to regenerate corpses that go out and feed off of the blood of the living. So many things fall back into this realm of the elementals that fills every paradigm for these cryptids that we're talking about around the world.
Now, speaking of that, yeah, Chris posted something on our page. It was that story that came out not too long ago about that skeleton that was uncovered with the sickle over the neck.
Oh yes.
And so, you know, it's one of those things. It's, you know, it has in the quotes vampire, you know, but it's one of those. It's definitely an interesting thing. Was that the reason that person perished? You know, and that's, you know, they just ended up getting buried that way, or was it something like that was part of the hysteria? They thought they were a vampire, and it's one of those. This is a way of ensuring that it didn't come back out of the grave.
Yeah. Well, I know that the big toe on one of the feet also had a lock on it. So whoever buried that body there wanted it to stay buried.
Yeah. And so that's probably not the best thing to uncover. That's like the mummy thing. It's just like,
right. That's right.
yeah, it's one of those, when you find these things, it's like, what should we do? Dig it up? I don't think so. I think it was meant to stay there. I'm like, I mean, I think that's how the movie, the movie stuff happens. Like just instant Hollywood thing pops in your mind.
That's how all the movies start. That's right. That's right.
But I was reading different tactics. So they were driving nails through the coffin to secure the skull on that report. They were doing all different things to try to block the vampires from raising from the dead.
That's right. Yeah, the stake through the heart comes onto the scene very, very late. They were putting rocks in the mouths before they were driving stakes through the heart. And I think that whenever we start seeing the stake through the heart, that comes on the proliferation of Christianity throughout parts of the world. The idea of the stake in relation to the cross and pinning it to the ground and everything. I think that's what comes into play.
And she brought up another thing. That's one of the things too. I don't know if it's just the area, just the stuff, but Louisiana in the bayou, the swamp areas, seems to really have that connection with the supernatural, the other side. There's just everything from the voodoo culture to, and just a lot of places cast Louisiana, and that seems to be one of the prime sites. I mean, True Blood used that site as one of their things. And so there seems to be like this, something about this attraction to the Louisiana area for a lot of these things, the vampire, that type of culture. I mean, where do you think that comes from?
Well, a lot of it comes from, that's where the Mississippi dumps out, and that's also a port city. So you have a lot of different cultures coming together naturally for economic reasons. And also we have to remember too, that was a center for trading of slaves as well too. So you also have this influx of African mythology as well. So that's just a breeding ground for a lot of different belief systems to come together and kind of foment into its own very unique folklore in that area.
That was a great answer.
Yeah, and that's I think he was. Is it, do the minerals in Louisiana cause a supernatural connection?
Yeah. And I'm looking at that as well too. So in the Chestnut Ridge area where I do my research, a lot of limestone here. I know where Barney and Betty were supposed to be abducted by aliens up in New Hampshire. A lot of granite up there. So it does seem to be a correlation between certain types of cryptids and certain types of paranormal phenomenon and the geology in which the land around it is created in.
Yeah, because it's one of those. I want to get down there and spend a little more time. I was down there for a little bit, but I definitely want to do like the cemetery tours and stuff. I mean, I saw the tourist trap, voodoo shop, where everything's made in China, or you got the one person sitting here doing the really quick tie things like, yes, this is a voodoo doll. No, it's not. You just grabbed a bag of stuff out of your, to your side and keep making these things in mass. It's like, no, that's not a doll.
Did she have a snake around her neck? Because if she had a snake around her neck, then you know it's genuine.
Yeah, that's right. I'm trying to remember if that one person did, but they were behind like a creepy like cage type thing as they were doing this. So yeah, it was definitely the tourist trap, because but it.
Let me just put this out there, gentlemen. Let me just put this out there. I think this summertime, 4 guys with beards in Louisiana.
What time? Next year?
Let's
do this.
How about that?
I would love it. Yeah, especially get one of those things. I mean, because the last time we were there was in January of 2020.
We have to make this happen, because
we got to make this. I've never been there. And I would love to go visit everything about that place. First of all, I want to eat the food down there, so it could be a travel.
Cafe Du Monde.
Yep, it will show us eating things. I'll eat a po' boy. I don't care. I don't even know what that is, but I'll eat anything down there. And then we'll visit the cemeteries. We'll visit the swamps, and we'll get to the bottom of this, and we'll put it out as a web series.
I'm down.
Hey, I wouldn't have any problem with that, because it's just one of the things you guys got to try. Chicory coffee is pretty good.
I'm already in. This time in June, we'll go down in June, and I'll be drinking a chicory coffee, looking over the palatial whatever's down there. I have no idea, but yeah, we could go to Florida too. Yeah, Brian's been wanting me to get to Florida. I've been wanting to come to Pennsylvania, but I need to work with Brian more. I feel bad that we don't get the chance to see each other very often.
Maybe we could set something up there like that for Labor Day, Craig. Because I mean, that's the day we all have Monday off. It'd be hard to get off any other day.
Yeah,
Maybe
I mean,
we could set something up like.
Yeah, try to have it to where it's like the weekends because we all work in the same place. So that's why it's so hard for us all to get the same time off.
Well, you guys are what, 7 hours away, 7 or 8 hours away from Louisiana?
Yeah, it's about 8.5. You know,
really?
if you drive, but if you drive like Chris, it's about 6.
Okay.
You know,
Is it really only 7 hours away?
No, it's right about 8.5 to get from our house to there. Because if you stop at Buc-ee's along the way a couple times, then it takes about 9.5. You know, it's like if you stop at
5.5, maybe.
Can you believe this guy has never been to Buc-ee's and he refuses to stop?
Okay,
there's a Buc-ee's about an hour and a half away,
and he drives by it all the time.
Every time going fishing.
Okay.
Don't stop.
We went to Tennessee. I took my kids to Tennessee with me to the Dogman Conference. First time I ever saw Buc-ee's because we don't have them up here in Pennsylvania. My son went in there. He's 9 years old. He said, "Dad, come here." He took me to the bathroom and said, "Look at all these stalls."
Yep. That's one of the things. It's like people think, "What?" And I'm like, "You don't understand." I go, you could literally take your food in there, set it on the floor, use the bathroom, and you'd have no problem picking it back up. They keep it clean. They have a full-time attendant that does nothing but clean that bathroom.
I know. I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
I mean, it's one of those. It is a destination that people have to go to. I mean, they make a big deal when their brisket comes out.
It does. Brisket out.
Yeah, they announce it right here, and it's like it's like they're bringing it to the king. You know, they're all carrying it out, and they set it on the plate. You know, yelling about a fresh one that's coming out. So it's quite something. But yeah, as we got just a couple minutes here left with you, but it's just that's the one thing, you know, I really liked about this stuff. It's just I really like talking about these things and just having open dialogue because there's not really that's the crazy thing is anybody that claims that they're an expert, it's hard to be an expert on something that's never been, you know, physically, you know, studied. I mean, it's like it's all we think this. It's like you can't claim to be a definitive on something that we have never physically touched.
That's right.
And so, you know, so I don't think there's a bad idea. I don't think that really there's a wrong idea because we don't know. We just know that you've been out in the woods. Everybody that's been out in the woods doing hiking, something like this, we've felt something. There's something out there. I mean, most likely for me, when you hear that snap of the thing, it's most likely it's that damn squirrel that's scaring the hell out of me because it's just snapping on things, you know, and I think it's a mountain lion getting ready to eat me. And it's just, you know, and it's just a squirrel. And it's just, but it's that deep down thing that's been bred into humanity of the predator thing. You know, I'll just say, you know, when there's something off, you do. There's something about it. You know, there's something different.
You're right. And I'll tell you what, you three guys with beards have really done an entertaining show. And I'm really amazed about the people over in your comment area. So these folks really know what they're doing. And that really makes the show as well, too. As somebody that comes on the show to be interviewed, it means the world to me to see this kind of response. So I really was happy to be here. I'm glad Brian suggested me to you guys, and I had a great
appreciate. Yeah, I'm more than happy that you accepted because, as I said, it was exciting.
We would love to collab on that. Maybe we can set up Labor Day next year. Maybe we can work on some numbers and see about some hotels. And
I'm all for
get me out of state for the first time, please, God.
He's got to get out of the state. He's never been out of the state of Florida. I've been a lot of places.
27 years. I'm still. I love my state. I really do. But I want to get out and travel sometime.
Yeah,
we'll do this. We'll do this, guys. I'll tell you what, if you're game for it, I'm game for it. I cannot wait.
Yeah, we just got to figure because it's one of those. I mean, it'd be easy enough to do on a weekend. You know, even just a weekend to go over. You know, head out Friday, spend all day Saturday there, and come back because, like I said, it's 9 hours. I mean, it's really doable to get back. I mean, it's definitely.
With 3 drivers, we'd be fine. I mean, so let us know when you got some free time on your schedule. We'd love.
Yeah, well, I can adjust my schedule. I have to worry about you guys. Whenever you have 3 days, give the Ron a call, and I will be there.
Ooh, all right.
Don't threaten us with a good time.
I know. That's. I said we're definitely gonna have to do this. Well, sir. Like I said, once again, everybody go. You can go. I'm going to bring it back up on the screen here so everybody can find it here. It's like your book's a million here. That's a proprietary term. So don't, I was not stealing that. Yeah, it right here. Just you basically just it goes down the list. I'm not even sure how many pages this are, but you've got. I said, you name it. You got your books here.
Yes, lots and lots.
Except for that one. I'm not sure who Michael
that's
Murphy is. Why are you even here?
I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things about Amazon. It's like why they give you results that you didn't ask for. I don't know. But yeah, check him out. You can go support him there. You can also follow him on Facebook. It's Ron Murphy. Ronald Murphy actually is what you have yourself on Facebook. You can follow him there. There's also an author page, and you can follow that there too, and go like that and keep in touch with him and support him. Pick up the books. Like I said, definitely there's a little bit for everybody. I mean, it's like if you got something, whether it's self-help, whether it's cryptids, there's a little of everything there for you. So, and Brian said we need to update a few covers.
That's right. Brian's my guy. He has designed these covers because originally I went through a publisher that didn't really know what they were talking about, and he did a great job.
Yeah, I'm wearing one of Brian's shirts.
There you go.
Yep, that's one. Yeah, so Ronald, appreciate it there. Yeah, go Seahawks. Yeah, so you're probably are you a Steeler fan by any chance?
I'm a Miami Dolphin fan. I've been a Dolphin fan.
There we go.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, guys, they were the winningest team in the 80s, right, with Dan Marino. So I had my glory days with those guys. Even though we didn't win a Super Bowl, I got to see them, out there. They
had the perfect season, so there you go.
Right. Exactly.
They're gonna do good.
Only team with the perfect season.
They'll do good.
That's right. Tyreek Hill down there, know what's going to happen this year.
That's right. What's going to happen this year.
All right. Well, just for the sake, I'm a Seahawk fan, but we'll just say go Dolphins. There we go. So, all right, sir. Well, get back to the family there. Like, really appreciate it. Thanks again for being on the show. And like I said, we wish you the best, and we will definitely be in touch. Like I said, because we can figure out that we've got. Wife wants to get back to Louisiana too, go spend a little more time in New Orleans. So we could definitely make this something happen with the families for sure.
We'll do it, guys. We'll do it.
All right. Thanks. Have a great night. All right. Awesome. That was
to Louisiana.
Yeah. So now we got to figure out that time so we can get to Louisiana. So, hey, everybody, Emily, MA, Kat, Brian, Laura, Yes, make sure I don't forget Ron, Mark, Eddie. We got Constance. I'm just gonna go through and make sure I don't forget anybody. Probably going to Brenda. She's on there. I really appreciate that. Who else did I miss? Alex was on there as well as MA, Alan, and who would you say?
D's nuts.
See it. I knew you were going to go somewhere with that. Yeah, it's one of those April, Jaron, so I just thank you guys so much for checking us out. Appreciate everybody for, giving us stars and being a subscriber. I think, subscribers, that really helps us. But, just
waiting on Dildo Palace.
No, we are not. We are not. Yes, that's the thing. We got to find a sponsor so that way, we're not stuck there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's once they said, once we get it, like, hopefully. So but thanks for everybody for watching. Like I said, appreciate it. This was brought to you by 3beardspodcast.com. We're sponsoring ourselves here. Check that. Look at us on all social media. You'll find us there, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Like, share, subscribe, comment. There's a lot of comments in there. That was great. Appreciate that. You can support us through the website 3beardspodcast.com, or you can go to redbubble.com, 3beards podcast, and buy merchandise and support us that way. And then that's Jared Dildo Palace presents 3 Beards Podcast. No,
we talked about
no.
Craig said no for it.
Yeah, no. It's like Dildo Palace presenting the new Fleshlight. No. That's we don't want this to happen. No, it's
not. You can fly us out to different states. I'll gladly say it.
Oh God, that I was telling Chris about that too. It's, somebody posted on Twitter. They said, I'm just surprised that Hot Pockets and Fleshlight haven't had a cross promotion.
Right?
I'm like, can you imagine if you made that mistake? Molten lava pizza sauce.
Some fantasies, I guess.
Yeah, Laura, brought to you by Adam and Eve. Yeah, see, that's what we're trying. We're trying to stay away from the porn industry. Is what we're trying to do here.
Porn makes good money.
I know.
Ironically, that'll be the people that give us the first sponsorship. I send them an email. Sure, we'll sponsor you. Just have to link the BBC.
All I know is if it does happen, Chris is the official person that will product test. He will be the one showing off the latest products.
The butt plug.
Yeah, everything. He'll be the one he'll have to do show and tell, talking about what the latest, greatest thing they're promoting.
Look, hey, MAL has it right. Just different cryptids for different stuff.
Oh my god.
We're gonna be viral. And it's like, New York Times first podcast be sponsored by a porn industry.
Yeah, that's what the reason is just how awkward that would be. I mean, it's just, You try to team up with Squishables or Cryptid Horror Plushie. That would work. I'd be cool with that one. At first, when I saw Squishables, I was thinking, it's like, oh, that just does not sound. Try out the latest Squishable. Yeah, I think that would be. See, that would be cool. I mean, like I said, I would love that thing. Dr. Squatch soap. I mean, that would be. That would work. I mean, that would be awesome. But yeah, no, it's just I just cannot even imagine.
I'm imagining it.
Chris over here. Let me just explain to you how amazing this lube is. This was the best lube.
It'll even help you find a Bigfoot.
This non-scented thing even makes it when you're having that special time out in the woods, nothing will find you.
I mean,
yeah, please save me.
Save me. Who's Goop? Who does that Goop crap?
The what?
That Goop, like sells her candle or her vagina. Who is that?
Oh,
it's not Madonna. It's the other one. I can't think of her name.
No, that's.
I want to say Gwen Stefani. It's not Gwen Stefani. It's who the hell is that?
No, Gwyneth Paltrow is the one that was doing where putting the whole stone up the hoo-ha.
Yeah, that's what it is. She's the one with the freaking candle. I was like, okay.
Yeah, there's just some really weird stuff out there. Yeah, it's my god. No. Yeah. See that's the see. Oh my god. This is just you have some cryptid KY jelly have some cryptid themed
beef curtains.
Oh my god.
The mermaid KY.
Yep. Yes. See, that's why you stay. This is kind of like the after show. You get you get some of the stuff that I feel like it's not exactly the most appropriate when we have a guest on. Oh god. Yeah. All right. Yes. No. But once again, we're rebroadcast. On ERRT Radio every Wednesday night, starting about 11 p.m. ish. Courtesy of Ron there. So I'm sure we just gave him an awesome plug that he's going to love. Sure. Yeah. Beef curtains. What? Oh my god.
T-shirt idea, dude. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Just have the 3 beers per beef curtains.
Beef curtains.
Just leave it like that. Should we do it with a question mark? Beef curtains question mark?
Where's the beef curtains?
Yeah. So everybody, we will be back next week with another show. Stay tuned for that. And like I said, but thanks once again. Thanks everybody for watching. We will see you next week. Good night, everybody.